You're listening to the Get.Out.N.Drive.Podcast with John CustomCarNerd Meyer and Jason OldeCarrGuy Carr. We'll be bringing you gearheads everything you never wanted to know about cars and why they should be on the road and not in your garage. Are you ready to get out and drive? Get those cars on the road October 2nd, 2022 to celebrate National Get Out and Drive Day. Visit nationalgetoutandriveday.com for more info.
Now, if you guys are hanging out on the TikToks, you can certainly go over and check out our newest National Get Out and Drive Day ambassador.
John, did you really just say the TikToks?
I did say the TikToks.
You got to be a little hipper than that. It's TikTok. It's not TikTok.
Well, it's the TikToks. It doesn't matter. It's like the Walmart and the Twitters. For some National Get Out and Drive Day 2022 coverage, you can head over to the TikToks.
And while you're over on TikTok, make sure you tell Jeffrey that the guys over at Get.Out.N.Drive.Podcast sent you.
The Get Out and Drive podcast is now on Wingding TV. That means you can check out the Get Out and Drive podcast and our exclusive video content on Roku, Apple TV, Fire TV, and more. Just download the Wingding app and start watching and listening today.
Okay, welcome back to another great episode of the Get Out and Drive podcast. My name is Jason, OldeCarrGuy Carr.
And I am John, CustomCarNerd Meyer.
John, do you ever think at any point in your life you could do any one thing, just change your entire career and pick up and go?
Now, why would I not want to be a mechanic and a body man? That seems weird, but I guess.
But don't you ever have aspirations to want to do something different?
I do. I've always wanted to work for be like a Disney Imagineer guy building all sorts of crazy animatronic stuff for Disney. I think that's crazy. Or be a Pixar artist.
Well, I've always wanted to do something just totally strange and out of the ordinary. You all know I'm a car salesman by day, and by night, I've always wanted to be a comedic actor. I think of myself as funny, but I would never have the nerve to get up and go out and just do something, career change, quit my job, anything like that. I say that because I'm excited about our next guest here on the podcast, Amy Lerner. And Amy has quite a story that associates with basically just one day thinking, I can do that. Amy, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So I tell that story simply because I watched an old interview from back maybe in 2012 where you talked a little bit about seeing something, a race that you thought you could do that. You just wanted to be able to do something different. You spoke with your husband. Can you tell me that story?
Sure. It was actually, I read a newspaper article about this event that had been happening for probably, I think, 20 years at the time in Morocco called the Rally Aisha des Gazelles, or the Gazelle Rally. And it was a 9-day orienteering rally for women across southern Morocco with old school navigation. So zero electronics. You turned in your phones, you turned in your GPS, and you used maps and compasses, and you had to get from point A to point B every day for 9 days in the shortest distance possible. And I had never done anything like that. I grew up around cars and antique cars, and loved the idea of racing. Had gone to racing school before I had my kids, and it just was a moment that hit me. And I thought, wow, that's a really cool place to visit. The photos look amazing. I've never driven off road, and why not? So I, took my Kindle and I put it in front of my husband and I said, hey, honey, I think I found my midlife crisis. And he read the article and was like, well, okay, if you want to do that, sure. And I, did some research and had to find a navigator to go with me, invited my sister to go along. We went to training, learned what I thought was enough, turned out not enough. I had a lot more to learn. Went to Morocco, had an incredible time, and just kind of got hooked on the whole off-road driving, off-road rally, off-road racing. And then it just grew, and I just, started doing other events.
What were you doing as for a career when you had this aha moment of, I want to blast across the desert in a lifted Porsche?
So at that moment, I was primarily a stay-at-home mom. My early career was working on Wall Street and trading desks. So I was still sort of involved, trading on my own a little bit when I had time with the kids. My kids are still small.
So one of the things that I like to always know is a little bit about the background of the person. Now, you say you used to be, doing some trading on Wall Street and whatnot. Before you saw that article, that newspaper article, and said that, you wanted to go to Morocco, what was your hobby? What did you do to kind of stress release before you decided to go ahead and do something like this?
So this will sound, diametrically opposed to off-road racing, but I actually read a lot of books and I did a lot of cooking.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that, because anybody can use some good home cooking.
We always love to hear all sorts of crazy stories about racing. I know you said you drove in Morocco, and you've driven across a bunch of different countries. What have you done that's crazy to get the car put back together? Has it crashed or broken or lost parts and things like that? And you strung it together with some baling wire and chewing gum on the side of the road.
I actually feel very lucky in one way and very well prepared in another way to say that I don't really have any of those stories.
Wow.
I have not ever really had a wreck. I've, rolled a couple tires off the rims, had a couple of busted shock mounts, but really, if I could throw some salt over my shoulder, knock on wood, whatever else you want to do, that's how I've been so far. And part of that is attributed to the guy who gave me my first off-road racing lesson, Rod Hall, who was a, legend in the industry. And sure. his go-to is always, to finish first, you must first finish, which is really just, you can't win the race unless you get your car to the finish line. And you have to really learn how to get that car to do just as much as it can. And maybe, a half a mile an hour faster than you think it can go. But you really don't want to push too much, because out in the dirt, things can happen that you don't expect and you don't see. You're not just going in a circle turning left. There's bumps and, there's all kinds of things. There's animals, and you've got to be ready for them. And if you're pushing your car past what it can take on a regular basis and you hit one of those things, you're going to break, you're going to crash, and your race is over and you're not going to win.
How did you start getting into the racing circles of the people that you're with now? I mean, in my wee little brain, I see you saying, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and you just said, I'm a racer now, and you started hanging out with those people? Or what was your transition?
Just show up and you do it. And
it's that simple.
There's a lot more to it than that, but it is it's a really welcoming community, the off-road community. There's a lot of families that go. There's a lot of people that it's one of the few, I realized this recently, one of the interesting things about it is one of the few motorsports where the top drivers in that particular type of motorsport are racing the exact same course as someone like me, or someone who just got a bunch of buddies and, slapped a roll cage on their wife's car and, put an extra gas tank in it. And they're going to go try to race the Baja 1000. They are racing the exact same course. They're parking next to these guys at Tech and Contingency. So it's a very welcoming community and everybody's approachable. So if you go and you're interested and you try and you're serious and you ask questions, people are going to help you, and they're going to help you with what they've learned. And you still have to do it yourself to really understand what it is about. But it's a great, environment to be in as a beginner.
So Amy, a few minutes ago, you were talking about, learning, patience and, to finish a race. First, you must finish, inspirational things like that. Like, tell me, where does the term leadfoot come from then?
Yeah. So leadfoot was the nickname that Rod gave me after that first training session. I was apparently a little enthusiastic on the throttle, and throttle control is important in any kind of racing, and particularly when you're bouncing around, you have to know the right speed to get you up and down things. So he that was kind of a gauntlet that he threw down. And I was like, okay, I know what he's saying when he calls me that. It's not really a flattering thing. No, I should, if I want to be successful, and this guy obviously knows what he's doing, I need to back it off a little and really, pay more attention to the car and the terrain and the control rather than just stepping on the gas.
Well, and people like him, who has been around the block a time or two, obviously learns these things. He's seen probably a lot of people come and go. To be able to sit down with someone of that caliber, like, were you nervous the first time you got behind the wheel to learn this, or were you just too excited to be nervous?
I was excited. I was nervous. I had no idea who was in the car behind me because I had no idea who Rod Hall was. And he was a very self-deprecating, humble guy. And he has kind of an aw shucks persona and wants to chit chat with you. And I honestly, halfway through the training, was like, does this guy, he just keeps asking me how I'm going to solve these problems and how I'm going to do these things. So is that his training, or does he just not really know what he's doing? But I later learned, exactly who he was and exactly what he knew, and realized, how fortunate I was that was the guy who called me Leadfoot, that he knew what he was doing, and I really should pay attention. Has there
Been anything that you have done that just you spontaneously did it that surprised you? That, oh my God, where did I learn that? Or how did I learn that kind of thing? Anything surprise you that either your driving skill or something?
There have been lots of moments where particularly when you're in a speed race, that you have to react to the terrain changes almost before you realize you're reacting to the terrain changes. So there have definitely been moments where I kind of went, whew, okay, I guess I know what I'm doing because we just made it through that. Wow.
Yeah, that seems like that is true, because sometimes I watch these, races like what you were in and the Dakar Rally, and it's amazing sometimes the skill of the drivers to just navigate the terrain. It's amazing, because like you said, you have no idea what's ahead, but still you have to blast through it, and you're racing the clock.
Yeah, that's where the person in the right seat honestly comes into play quite a bit, because they've got race notes with tulips and instructions to tell you what's sort of happening next. They'll tell you, there's dangers coming up, you've got to turn. So if you've got great communication, you'll take the information and translate it with what you're seeing and be able to anticipate to a degree. But everything's not in those notes. And, the notes may have been made 3 weeks ago and there was a big storm, and now there's a huge washout. And you don't know what's coming because the notes weren't made the day before or after the rain. So you've got to be able to react to it. And that's where the training and knowing your vehicle and getting a lot of seat time really comes into play.
Wow.
So speaking of terrain, we know that you've raced in Morocco. I've seen some interviews, and I've seen some of your racing where you've raced in Australia.
Yep.
What are some of the other events that you've raced in the past that's taken you over some of this beautiful wilderness that's it's here. Anybody can go see it, but you've raced across it. You've been there. Do you actually get to take in any of that scenery?
You get to take in a good bit of it, but not there. There are places, I'll tell you, Saudi Arabia was one great example of that, because that's a place where we went, and I would say that I felt like we landed on a different planet every day, because the terrain was just that varied. And it's not a place that has a big off-road culture yet. It's not a place a lot of tourists go to. So you really felt like you were dropped in a place that people hadn't been before. And I've been through Saudi Arabia twice now, and I had an opportunity to go back a few months ago as part of a media team to another rally going on. It was called the Jameel Rally, which was the first all-women's off-road event in Saudi Arabia. And it was incredible to go and drive along the course while not competing and actually have a chance to look and enjoy what you're seeing.
Nice.
Do they set the courses up to be challenging, or do they set them up for scenery, or both? Or how is a course set up? And do they change?
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the event, and every event they try to run it through a different area, even if it's something like the Mid 400, which takes place in a relatively small area outside of Las Vegas. The course itself is similar every year, but it's always a bit different to make it interesting, because even if you have in that race, you'll have a GPS in the car and a track that you're following. So even if you're following the track, it's going to look different every year.
The first thing that comes to mind when I think of somebody who's racing in a caliber of race that you're doing, you're in Morocco, you're in Saudi Arabia, Australia, wherever these races take you, it's got to be expensive. So there's got to be some form of support there to help you get going. Is there sponsorship involved? Are there people who are helping you fund your racing to keep you going?
Yeah, it's definitely an opportunity for sponsorship, because the events tend to get some good media coverage, whether it's, something that's more local, or like the Dakar Rally, which is global and millions and millions of people follow it around the world. So it's definitely opportunities for sponsorship.
Kind of tell us, and our listeners, tell us about that car that you've been racing for quite some time, the Porsche. That thing looks rough, rugged, and ready.
Yeah, that is it's a 1982 911 SC, which was built for rally before I purchased it. And at the end of 2020, I had what I like to call a moment of pandemic-induced madness. And 2 weeks before the registration for the Dakar Rally closed, I thought, well, geez, it would be kind of fun to try to go and see if I could compete in this new thing called the Dakar Classic that they were doing, because I love old cars, love rally. It was a kinder, gentler way to experience Dakar, which I had never been to before. And the Porsche turned out to be available for sale, was well built, well prepped. And I thought, okay, sports car in the desert? Sure, why not? 2-wheel drive? Never done that before, but hey, let's give it a go. So that was how I ended up getting my hands on it. And the learning curve was steep for the driving. I've always driven 4x4s. So 2-wheel drive, rear engine, definitely a different experience. So my driving, wasn't what I would have wanted it to be that first year, because I showed up because of COVID in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, got in the car, drove across the parking lot. Next day was the prologue, and off we went. So I really hadn't had any chance to drive the car ahead of time, which is why.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, which really was what pushed me to come back with that same vehicle just this past year, because I knew I had more in me, and I knew that the car was more capable than I drove it.
Wow. I know you said Dakar Classic. Explain to us the parameters and the year breaks of vehicles that are allowed to compete. So
that is a new kind of rally next to the rally that started in 2021. And it is open to pre-2000 rally vehicles. They don't necessarily have to have been rallied themselves, or it could be like my car that was built as a tribute to a specific vehicle of a specific era. And it is a regularity rally, not a speed rally, which means you need to get from the beginning of the rally to the end of the rally in a set amount of time, which in turn means that there's different average speeds that you have to reach that can change, over a 30-kilometer section. You can change your average speed 20 times based on the terrain, or based on, however they felt like making it. So it's really precision as opposed to just straight out speed.
I know you said your car was a tribute car, or built to be like another car. Does your car have history itself, or was it purpose-built to be a clone or homage to another vehicle? And what was that vehicle?
So it was built as a tribute to the Porsches that were raced by the Porsche factory team and Jackie Ickx in the mid-'80s. And Jackie actually managed to win the Dakar Rally overall, which means the best of every vehicle that entered that year in a Porsche, which was incredible. So my car was built as a tribute to that by a different rally team, and it had been raced a few times before I bought it, and on the podium in a couple of different rallies in Morocco and in Belgium. So it came with its own history as a tribute to an epic era of, Porsche history.
And I know, changing from a 4-wheel drive vehicle that turns, how was that adapting to a vehicle that would push and was rear heavy?
It was, four-wheel drive vehicle, and I'm used to a lot of my rallying was in a Jeep, which is a mountain goat. So you just slow, steady throttle, and you'll just, whatever you're doing, you just kind of crawl up it. Mm-hmm. And this was just all about momentum, with a two-wheel drive vehicle in loose terrain, sand, you've got to just keep going.
Wow.
So that was a big thing to learn. I retrained my muscle memory.
I'm excited to announce that the Get Out and Drive podcast is now on Wingding TV. This means you can check out the Get Out and Drive podcast and our exclusive video content on Roku, Apple TV, Fire TV, and more. Just download the Wingding app and start watching and listening today.
Jason, we sure get to talk a lot.
Yes, and some of us more than others.
Who, me?
I'm not pointing any fingers.
Yes, you are. But we want to hear from our listeners. Just go to our website, Get.Out.N.Drive.com, scroll to the bottom of the page, and click the listener hotline button. We want to hear from you. Cool stories, breakdown stories.
Questions, comments.
Hate mail?
Even hate mail?
Even hate mail. You got a car show in your area? Let us know.
Tell us an interesting story.
Let us know what you like to get out and drive.
So, Amy, tell us a little bit about the different classes of races that you run. I know there's some that are timed. There's some that you just got to do a certain distance. So maybe this is a two-part, I guess. Maybe you can tell us about the different classes that you've raced and then follow that up with which do you prefer?
So I've done, I guess you could say, maybe 3 different categories of rally. One would be like the Gazelle Rally, which is the navigational rally, where speed is not a component. Your time is not a component. It is really how you get yourself from one point to another, and usually in the shortest distance, but there's different events that have different types of scoring. And then there is just a basic speed rally, which is a race. And I like the cross country rally version, which is usually a multiple day event. They tend to go from 3 to, 8, 9, 10, or like Dakar, 12, 14 days. And each day is a couple of stages, and you go as fast as you can from the start to the finish of those stages. And your scores and your times are all cumulative over the course of the whole event. And then this Dakar Classic was a new format for me, which is the regularity format, where you are driving an average speed over a certain distance and trying to get from the start to the finish in a certain amount of time.
And of those, you prefer which one?
Oh, I like to go fast.
You like to go fast.
I do like to go fast. But I will say I was quite surprised by the challenge of regularity, because it sounds, get on the road and go 30, and wow, that's not very exciting. But the way the Dakar Classic was structured, the speeds tend to match the terrain quite nicely. So the speeds are actually a challenge for what the given terrain is. And it also was set up in a way that if your average speed is 60 kilometers, you can't just set the car to 60 and, take a nap or look at the scenery, because the terrain is constantly changing in front of you. So your 60 is going to have to go to 30 at some point because there's a big dip in the road, or, speed up to catch up to get yourself back on the time. So it really was really challenging and fun.
Are there any classes or different types of cars that you aspire to get into or racing?
I have had the opportunity to drive a lot of stuff. I kind of would love to pull one of the early trophy trucks and take it to the Dakar Classic. If I had an opportunity one day, that would be kind of a super fun combination, and maybe get back, the last couple of things that I have been doing have been in regularity, get back to the more of the racing side of it, either in, a side-by-side, which is an easy, more budget friendly, I guess, way to race, or some other, maybe a car.
What is the oldest car that you've seen or that has run in recent history? What is the oldest car that has run in the Dakar Classic?
Ooh, I don't know what the oldest vehicle was exactly. My Porsche, which was an 82, was one of the oldest. I think there might have been a 79 something. but they really are trying to keep it to the same era as the Dakar has existed, which would have started in, I think, 78. So
okay,
there might have been a couple of older, but
sure.
So I guess one of the things that, we listen to all the stories from different racers, the stories that you've told us here tonight. And one of the things that I like to know from people who have done this, and sounds like you've been everywhere when it comes to racing, is what's the biggest takeaway in the last decade of racing that you can take home to say, okay, this is the biggest thing I've learned, or this is the biggest thing I'm taking away from doing what I do and why I do it?
Ooh, on a racing level or on a human level?
Well, I think with what you're doing, I think you can kind of combine them both, but I guess we're kind of looking at the racing level. So, something you can take away from your racing experience.
On the racing level, I would have to say from my own perspective as a woman, which is a question that I often get, and I will happily say that there are way more women that I run into in the racing world and just motorsports in general than there were when I started. That there's no reason there shouldn't be just as many women as there are men. I haven't physically encountered anything that I can't do, and I'm not super fit. I mean, you do need to be in pretty good shape, because particularly in off-road, because you get banged around. But, from that perspective, I would say that there are no barriers to entry that I have found. And I think also in general that if you want to race, there is a form of racing that you can access. I tend to, because it's not a career for me, so I don't have, a fully sponsored team and I'm doing a full series of races. When I tend to choose an event to go do, I go for the big ones. But there's a lot of small races and there's a lot of small off-road communities that if you want to start, there's places you can start. You don't have to look at the Dakar Rally and say, oh my God, 12 days, big budget. I got to be out of the country for 3 weeks and I can't do it. There are opportunities and there are people there who will welcome you. So go do it.
This is just the strangest thing I'm thinking about, right? Has racing given you any additional abilities in normal traffic driving that you never thought you'd have? Like I know I can do this because I did this, when I was racing in this country, and you see yourself doing that or get the muscle memory when you're driving in local traffic. Well,
my local traffic is New Jersey, so it's a little aggressive.
See, there's the exact thing I'm talking about. You need that.
It's a little aggressive. So sometimes somebody will try to pull a move and I just go, yeah, really? And I just, zip around. But honestly, it's actually made me more patient because, I understand a little better what can happen if you do things that are risky or aggressive. And I also know, I've gone way faster than whatever we're doing on the highway. So I don't need to.
Yeah, we see that a lot, and I know Jason and I have talked quite a lot that the newer cars are making drivers feel more aggressive and safe being more aggressive.
Yeah,
and I see that, and safety features are starting to make poor drivers stay alive, and you obviously see that in traffic and things as well. So it's just interesting to have the racing mindset and you're driving in everyday traffic in what you would think is a crawl. You could just get out and walk, and having that ability and that the sense of what you've done in racing and applying that to local traffic. So that's cool.
Yeah, it's fun. You brought back a memory of waiting to pick my kids up at the elementary school and the women trying to cut in front of me in the car line.
So you mentioned before about being a woman, being a female in racing. Was there any one particular woman that inspired you to do what you did, or was it something you just grew upon yourself to say, I can do that, I want to do that, I'm going to do that?
Actually, there was, and she's now a really good friend of mine. There's a woman named Sue Mead, who is an automotive journalist. I don't know if you guys have come across Sue anywhere in your out and abouts, but when I was looking to go to Morocco, I was, Googling and trying to research whatever I could about what it meant and what it would take, and found an article that she had decided for her 60th birthday that she wanted to race the Dakar Rally as the driver of record. And she did it and won her class. And I just thought, you know what? That's the coolest thing ever. And 2 years later, I met her in Morocco at the Gazelle Rally. She had been brought in by Mercedes to drive one of their Sprinter vans. And she and I, we're now really good friends. I talk to her every couple of days, and we've done a lot of stuff together. She was with me in Saudi Arabia as my media manager. But yeah, no, just reading about her story really said, okay, she can do that. I can do this. That was great.
That sounds like the people to hang out with. I mean,
yeah, she's done some things, I have to tell.
Yeah, I see. And that as a mentor, has she taught you things to do or was able to guide you in a way?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because not only had she raced Dakar, she'd been there as a journalist. She had been in the Baja 1000 as a co-driver and done the Camel Trophy and just so many adventures and expeditions. And she just got this great, just do it spirit, which was really cool to, get the encouragement and the words of wisdom.
So what's next for Amy Lerner? What's the next big race? What's the next big thing? I
actually don't officially have anything on my schedule yet.
Really?
I think I'm taking a break from Dakar Classic this year, but I am considering the Morocco Rally in October, which runs this year, I think, along the coast, Atlantic coast of Morocco for about 8 days, and that'll be a race rather than a regularity.
Is there anything outside of what you've done already in your racing career that you aspire to do? Is there a different class of racing, a different type of racing?
The one thing that I have not done yet is raced in Baja. I have been down there and chasing races several times for my documentary film, but I have never actually raced that terrain. So that one's probably, if I had to, have a racing bucket list, that's probably the top of it.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your filmmaking career and your abilities as a director?
Sure. So I produced and co-directed a film called One More Win, which is about the aforementioned, my mentor and friend, Rod Hall, and his couple of years leading up to his record-setting 50th consecutive Baja 1000. So he was the only person to be at that very first Baja 1000 that left out of Tijuana in the Bull Ring in 1967 and race it every single year that it occurred until the 50th race in 2017.
Wow. That's a lot of driving.
Yeah. He used to joke that there were some people that maybe did a lot of Baja 1000s, but he was the only one that hadn't graduated yet.
Oh, wow. That is incredible. What type of projects are you working on currently, if you can say?
So I'm actually working on something that is outside of the automotive world, but in racing and rally, I have been talking to some people who are developing a project involving women in rally. So we'll see where that one ends up, but that one will be fun to work on.
Nice.
So, Amy, if somebody wanted to watch that documentary or that film, One More Win, where could they go to watch that today?
So it is on a whole bunch of streaming platforms, Amazon, iTunes, Google Play, I think YouTube and Vimeo, as well as maybe a couple of others, pretty much any place you can stream.
So I asked that for my own reference, as well as those who may be listening to us here today, because I think sometimes, we get to interview a lot of people in what we're doing. And sometimes we've got to go do our own research to find out a little bit more information about these folks. So when we're going through, sometimes it's good to see some of these big productions that somebody has taken the time and the effort and the energy and the money to go put this together for everybody else's entertainment. So I'm going to be sure to head out and catch that documentary, One More Win. So.
Definitely. Somebody told me you were on Jay Leno's garage on first season with your Jeep.
I was. It wasn't my Jeep. It was a bunch of the Jeeps that had been built for Easter Jeep Safari that year.
Wow. Yeah. Fun experience. Interesting, weird, fun.
Yeah, it was really fun. Jay Leno is a super nice guy.
Yeah.
I had the dubious distinction, as I may have mentioned, of elbowing him out of the way to save a car that was rolling down the hill because I had engaged the parking brake and left it in neutral rather than putting it in gear. And the parking brake apparently had been given a little too much love and wasn't quite doing what it was supposed to do. But didn't injure Jay and saved the car. So.
Save Jay from a runaway car.
Yes.
I'll make that plaque and I'll send it to you.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
I saved Jay Leno.
The Jeep loaned you did not roll off the hill.
Yes, exactly. Well, that sounds pretty cool. It sounds like you've done a lot of things and aspire to do even more. And we wish you a bunch of luck with the next step in your racing career.
Thank you so much. It's been great chatting with you guys.
Cool.
If you guys want to find your very own off-road vehicle, your race car, whatever it happens to be, make sure you head over to racingjunk.com. You just might find exactly what you're looking for. Oh, John, that was a real exciting interview. I really like talking about people who just spontaneously decide it's time to do something different.
Yeah, I can't believe how it would even feel to completely stop what you're doing and make a left turn, go to a totally different career.
Especially when you're doing something as prestigious as what Amy Lerner was doing. Like, I can't imagine being that successful and then just kind of almost answering an ad in a newspaper.
Yeah, just kind of show up and say, here I am, this is what I want to do.
Yeah. But it's also great that she had the family support and friends that were willing to help her get to where she wanted to go, because I'm not sure I would have that to do something if I decided it wasn't, selling cars was no longer feasible. I think I would have to,
right.
Have a bankroll, and be able to come and go freely. I just don't think I have that in me to do it. So congratulations on her for just, stepping outside the box and doing what she felt she was called to do.
Mm-hmm. What a wonderful, wonderful person. Jason, you like cruising around the internet, just searching for projects that you don't need. You do that?
I do. It's probably my second job.
It is your second job. I know I get smacked all the time because I've got plenty of projects, and I secretly still look for things other than the things that are in my driveway. What's wrong with us?
I don't know. It's definitely a sickness, but one of my favorite places to visit is racingjunk.com.
I go there a lot. I probably shouldn't, but I go there a lot. It's like a little secret hideout. I get really good deals there. Yeah, I'm sorry I'm saying this on the podcast. I'm going to let out the secret, but I'm getting much better deals there than I am on a lot of other websites.
Yeah, and not only can you buy and get good deals, but you can also sell your own junk and put money right in your pocket.
Yeah, that's right. They don't charge any transaction fees. Just 100% of what I make through my ad, I keep.
Absolutely. So if your wife is at you to clean out your garage for spring, you can post all your junk on racingjunk.com.
Wow. Well, I'm gonna stop talking now. I'm gonna head out to the garage, and I'll probably be back in a little bit, but I'm gonna head out and clean up some stuff. I know I've got a ton of stuff to sell.
Start making money today.
Get.Out.N.Drive.Podcast. Sell your stuff. Get money, stick it in your pocket.
Speed over to our friends at racingjunk.com and sign up for a Pro Club membership. Use the code GETOUT to receive a discount when you sign up for a Pro Club membership. Cruise on over to our website, Get.Out.N.Drive.com, for all the info you never wanted to know about our podcast. Hit us up on our listener hotline, be the first to know what's happening, get industry news, and grab your Get Out and Drive merch. Connect with us on social media. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Follow us on Twitter at Get.Out.N.Drive.Pod.
What drives you?